How are you guys today? Okay, we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. I'm going to break it back down again to you. I've got some people that are finding that they're struggling with understanding it. So we're going to take it really basic, take it right back down to the beginning, show you where there might be some problems with why you're not getting results with weight loss, what's happening with there, why are you not losing fat loss, what happens if the scale's not changing. So the first thing we're going to talk about is macronutrients. That's a technical term, but basically macronutrients means what gives the body energy. There are 5 key things that give the body energy. The first one is your carb source, carbohydrates, 5 calories basically per gram. Second one is protein. That's our 5 calories roughly. Now fat's the higher one, yes, and this is where there tends to be some confusion, so we're going to talk a little bit about that, but fat offer 9 calories. Alcohol is, yes, gives you energy. It's just not a good energy source, but it is included, and it is something that I prefer you to be having as not your main source of energy, and it's only periodically. And the 5th one is ketones, which you guys have heard me talk a little bit about how getting into that ketone diet where you're not having carbs in your body then uses ketones as a fuel source, and that's roughly 5 calories. But here's the difference. If you have more ketones coming out than your body requires, your body will basically pee it out. So that's what you need to know. So that if you're having more ketones in your body, let's say you're taking ketone drink or therapeutic ketones, or you're also on a ketone diet, you need to know that if you are having excess, it's just get peed out. It does not get stored. Where for these other ones, there's storage. Okay? Some things store less than others. Stores readily. This one is the first one to store, especially if it's the first thing kind of you're eating. This is kind of the second, then it goes to the third, and then it goes to the fourth. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This one, there's no storage. Okay? So that kind of breaks that down. Those are macronutrients. Then there's the micronutrients, and they're important. They basically are your vitamins and your minerals, okay? They don't actually provide energy source. They provide vitamins and minerals, essential things that we need, but they're not an energy source, okay? This is your energy source. So now we're going to talk about energy source. I get lots of people talking about, well, calorie is a calorie, to count your calories, and to some degree you do have to monitor your calories. Not necessarily get obsessed with everything. If that's your thing, you can, but it's not that critical. What is important is the energy output. So here you are. There's my little stick man. Okay, and this is how much energy you exerted that day. Now we look at how many calories did you consume that day. Total volume of calories. If it's less than the energy you exerted, you will lose. If it's more than what you exerted that day, you will store. So on this side you store, on this side you will lose. Okay, this is important for you to understand. So there are factors that affect whether or not what level is your output? What level of calories do you need to be consuming per day? If you're a little kid, your metabolism is really high, you're running around, you're exerting lots of energy, if you're playing a lot of competitive sports, if you're an athlete, your volume of food required is going to be substantially higher than somebody who goes to an office, sits at a desk, and doesn't move around. So this is where your factor of what you're actually doing, how much energy are you putting out that then you need to replace with food, okay? There's that factor. Then you add the factor of your age. So the more muscle you have, the more you can eat. The less muscle you have, the less you can eat. As you get older, from the age of 35 on, that muscle is going to be depleting unless you're working out, using those muscles to maintain it. You are at a definite depletion happening there. So if you haven't been working out, I can guarantee you that the amount of muscle you had in your 20s and mid 30s is now definitely decreased. You get to 40 and 50 and 60. Doesn't mean you can't get it back up again, but you have to look at yourself and say, have I been working out? Have I been doing this? If that's not the case, you know that what you could consume in terms of food volume regardless of what you were eating, is got to have diminished from what it is when you're 50. It's going to have slowed down. So it's really important for you to understand. Yes, you can affect it by how much muscle you're having. Yes, you can affect it by how much exercise you're doing. And I'm not talking about exercise like going to do a workout. I'm talking about you go and do your workout for 10, 15 minutes and then you literally sit at a desk and you don't want to park very far away. You don't want to take the escalator as opposed to the stairs and the elevator. All of those factors are how much your body is moving. If you look at little kids, they're forever running around. If you want to lose weight, I tell people, just follow your children running around all the time. You're burning way more calories. That's why that Fitbit's kind of a cool thing, because it gets you aware of just how much actual movement you're doing, okay? So these are gonna affect what's going on. Now, yes, there is a difference between calories. Not all calories are the same. As I mentioned before, in terms of storage, carbohydrates tend to store more easily and readily into the body if you have excess. So if you're having excess of that, it's more likely to store. Whereas fat is the least likely to store. And ketones, as I said, not at all. So it's important for you to be aware of that there are some foods that are more readily likely to store, like alcohol is one. And so you need to be aware that not all calories are created equal. The best example I can give you, you know those little 100-calorie snack pack where you think you're doing not badly because you're having a snack and it's only 100 calories? Technically speaking, that's correct. You're only getting 100 calories in that little snack pack. I don't know if any of you have ever opened them up, but it's like barely even a handful of that. Let's compare that to an egg. Let's compare that to a handful of almonds. A piece of meat of some sort, half a can of tuna, something like that. The difference between that little snack pack and an actual piece of protein or a tablespoon of hemp hearts, what's the difference? Zero nutritional value, actually not helping your body any, can set your body off wanting more sugar cravings, set your body off wanting more carbs. Body needs, muscle building, brain helping. Can you see the difference? So yes, I tell people when they're on a diet and they're eating more higher fat, but they're not losing, here's what's really important, okay? So this is really important that you get that. Here's one person here, and they are the weight they want to be. Their weight is perfect. They do not want to lose any weight, so they have no weight loss they're requiring. And they just want to feel great. They want to maximize their brain. They want to have everything be on. And so, or some of these competitive athletes, these high-level sports athletes, they're on a keto diet because they don't really need to lose weight. They're lean and they're ripped. But they want better brain power. They want better energy. They want better staying power. They want their muscles, repair time to all improve, okay? Then there's the second person, and they have weight loss. But they only have a small amount of weight loss, not too much. And then there's the third person, they have a lot of weight loss required, okay? And what I mean by weight loss, I mean fat. I mean that their waist is quite large, and that's got to go for weight loss, okay? This is minimal. This maybe be like, you know, they'd like to lose that 5 or 10 pounds so they feel better in bikini, and that's actually more fat loss. So these are actually fat loss we're talking about, okay? And I know that everybody gets caught up on what the scale is saying, but it's important to understand that when you're on the scale, you're not always getting an accurate description. And here's why. So people make the mistake of thinking, oh, I ate really well for 2-3 days. My first question to you is, how has your eating been over 2 weeks, 3 weeks, for the last month? Not 2 days, not 3 days, not these last. What have you been doing longer term? Looking over a larger span, because that's where you're actually going to get accurate measurements, okay? So when you hear people, they go, oh, I lost 11 pounds in a week. Well, I guarantee you that person's been eating poorly. The thing that they lost when they lost that 11 pounds and it seems to have dropped was water weight. So their water, the water had, they had just gone and flushed it all out. That's water weight. That's not fat loss. So the scale is telling them something, and they see it and they think, oh, I'm doing great. It's great that they're losing, but they have to know what you're losing, okay? We're interested in losing fat. We're not interested in losing a lot of water unless you're doing a competitive bodybuilder. That's what that losing water is about. They want to get really defined and ripped. And they're not interested in losing muscle. Those are the two things you do not want to be doing. So I want you to be aware of, it still comes down to what amounts you're eating, okay? This is why I like the intermittent fasting, because you're giving yourself a window of time of maybe it's 4 to 6 to 7 hours when you're eating, where you start off, you have your dinner, you don't eat, you go all the way through, and it's maybe 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, and then you finish your last meal by 6 or 7, and now you're in a 5-6 hour window of eating. That's far more effective at achieving fat loss. The thing is that it's 2 meals consumed, people eat and they don't find that they're as hungry. The body's not craving it. They haven't spiked up their insulin level. They're not going up and down and having their every little snack they have affecting their body. It's much more effective. It's much more efficient. So you find that you eat and then you're going to eat again. You're hungry again, so you can eat again. But you find that if you honestly look at what you consumed on your intermittent fasting days in terms of the total food log, compared to a normal day, I'd be shocked if you weren't finding that this was a lot lower on the intermittent fasting day. Hence, it helps you to achieve and accomplish your goal of fat loss, keeping your muscle up, not spiking your insulin levels. So it's really important that you understand that. The other really important thing to understand is you need to stay off the scale. Absolutely the most is once a week. Make sure it does not occur when you've had a whole bunch of carbs, because for every 1 gram of carb, your body retains 3 grams of water. Bloats you up. Okay, so people can eat something, get on the scale, and they put on 3 or 4 pounds, and they're not getting an accurate measurement. What you want to use is your clothes and a tape measure. Okay, the clothes are the most accurate guide to showing you what's going on. As well, I want you to really understand to look long term. If your eating's not been very good and you start, it would not serve you well to really get on the scale right away before, because you're not going to have an accurate description in that first week. You could be at the phase where you've just dropped a whole bunch of water weight, and then you're not, and then you may even put a pound or 2 on, then you get really frustrated because your body's blowing up. Because your body wants to kind of stay at a set point that it's at. So if it's at a certain set point, let's say it's at 180 pounds, okay? 180 pounds, and my goodness, you cannot get past that 180 pounds. And you've been super diligent with your eating, and you're trying to figure out why has the scale not changed? Well, one of 2 things can happen. You may have actually lost 2 or 3 pounds of fat. But that fat cell has then filled up with the 3 pounds of water. So that 5-pound weight loss that you had before has now been replaced with a little bit of extra weight. So muscle, we all have a muscle belly. And that muscle belly is full of muscle. And as that muscles get working more and you're doing stuff, that fat comes out of the surface of the muscle belly. So it actually fills up the muscle, and then the fat comes out to the surface. And you kind of look a little bit nubbly, and you can feel it there. It's because it's come to the surface and it's ready to go out. So you put on some muscle, you've got your fat still there. Now your fat's come to the surface. Now your fat gets filled with fat cells, get filled with water. So you've got extra muscle, you've got fat cells that have come out to this, now that they're on the surface. Some of them or all of them may be getting filled with water, because the body, that's what the body automatically does, and then it kind of flushes it out. Now, if you happen to not know that that's going to take 2 weeks to do, and you get on the scale here, or here, or here, you're not going to see the results. So my take on a scale is this. It's very simple. The scale is not your friend. Because if you get on the scale and it's higher, you feel bad. If you get on the scale and you feel like you've dropped a whole bunch and it's just water weight, you think, oh, I can keep eating. And you start eating more and more and more. So that's why I really, at the absolute most, every 2 weeks, the most, and it should definitely not have occurred around a time of bad eating. You should have at least 3 or 4 days. So if you're doing that sugar burn to a fat burner thing where I talk about you eat once your carb and then you don't eat carbs for the entire week and you deplete your leptin levels, right before you get on to do your cheat meal, that last day is when you would weigh yourself, because you've had 6 days of no carbs or low carbs and your body's actually much more accurate. That's the only way I like people weighing themselves every week. Other than that, every 2 weeks, 3 weeks to every month, or like me, just don't go on the scale. I don't go on the scale. I know roughly what I am. I can tell by my clothes. I can tell when I look in the mirror. That's the guide. So it's really important, because especially if you've done yo-yo dieting your whole life and the scale does set you off and it does get you upset or frustrated or make you feel bad, then it's not going to serve you well. This is a much more effective approach. Paying attention to what is your caloric intake that day and recognizing that. Because in essence, here's the thing. If you have no weight loss required, eating fat is necessary, because you got to feed and fuel your body so it can create ketones. If this is your guide and you're trying to lose weight, you do not want to have exorbitant amounts of this. Why? For one simple reason. You want to eat your own fat. So the intermittent fasting also helps along with that as well. So tell yourself when you're feeling like that and you've got a couple of hours to go, or you're just there and you're thinking, oh, I've eaten and you don't feel hungry, but you're feeling upset or there's something going on. Tell yourself, I am feeding my fat now. I'm eating my fat. That's what I'm trying to goal. That's the goal. So really be aware of what's your caloric intake compared to what's the energy you're outputting. That's the trick. That's the key. So I'm hoping that this kind of makes sense to you. Once again, macronutrients, that's where you get your energy from. There are 5 of them: carbs, protein, fat, alcohol, one I kind of try to say to avoid if at all possible, and then ketones. Ketones that, if there's excess, they do not store. With all of these other ones, they do store. So that's why it becomes really important. How many roughly calories are you having in a day? If you're having 2,000 calories in a day, and even though you think it's all coming from fat and barely any coming from carbs, you're still likely going to store that. And if your goal is to accomplish weight loss, that is not going to serve you well. That makes sense? I'm hoping that this makes sense to you guys. And once again, the micronutrients are not there's no energy coming from there. There's not a calorie count that way. You're not an energy source. It's simply something the body needs, okay? So it is important to have healthier food, but there are people we see and they eat crap and we wonder why. It's because they probably don't eat very much. They probably don't eat a lot. Doesn't mean that their skin's good. Doesn't mean that their kidneys are good. Their body's healthy. They have muscle mass. Most likely no to those things. Bad skin, those factors. But the still goes down to the basics. Their caloric intake is less than what they're eating, and that eating and energy is causing them to stay lean and slim. So I'm hoping this makes sense. Give it a share to your friends. Pass it on to people. Give it a like. Push the little button and you can do the subscribe and find out more and more as I give you stuff. And put down your comments. This is how I brought this up, because I had some people comment to me that they were confused. They weren't totally understanding and they wanted more information. So this is why I've done this. And I will continue to do that as you give me forth your questions and you're not quite sure about something. I can clarify that more on a broad scale rather than just one person at a time. This way I reach way more. So have a great rest of your Saturday.